I'll just mention one last thing. No VAR today. That was nice, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Good point. Let's finish on that. I don't know about you two. I'll give you both a chance to answer, but I've been quite a fan, well, not a fan of VAR, but after the last World Cup, I had wanted to see VAR come in to English football, and I still think that eventually it will settle down and be worthwhile once this stupid offside situation is smoothed out, because that's not good. But I have to admit, it did feel good to see a goal scored and be pretty certain it wasn't going to be chalked off and there wasn't going to be any VAR controversy to follow it. Did you feel the same, Paddy?
100%. Although, interesting, Alec Neil was bemoaning the lack of VAR because he felt Norwich's second and fourth goals were clearly offside, having watched them back on the telly. Whether or not he had a case, but it does amuse me that these clubs who don't have VAR are all for the use of it, but they might think a little bit differently if they'd had some of those offside calls you allude to, DF. And in terms of the flow of the game, then immeasurably improved. 6 goals today. What would we have had to sit through? 6 VAR checks for all of those goals. Would have still been there now, I think. So. No, I'm not a fan of that piece of technology, full stop. But it is what it is, and it's here to stay. So it needs to be refined from application actually through to communication, whether it's inside the stadium or further afield. It's clearly not fit for purpose at the minute, and it's not improving the product. So clearly there's work ahead. But today, to me, was a throwback to what I would like to see on a regular basis, but I think those days are gone, certainly in the Premier League anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, I do feel like VAR has become the enemy to a certain extent. Like, we've been listening to Radio 5 Live on our way down tonight, and there have been people saying ridiculous things like, how it's big club bias and things like that, and like you hear some fans say, the FA doesn't want our team to win, they just want Liverpool to win the league, all these stupid things, which are obviously not true, because, as you hinted at there, Pad, but when the decisions go against people, they go mad against VAR. But then when it helps them out, they're a little bit quieter, aren't they? So it's a real sort of difficult issue to get on top of. But I have to admit that the flow of the game today felt better. This is avoiding the obvious joke about not having to worry because Norwich may soon be back in the Championship, as we've climbed out of our ivory tower for the day and outside of Premier League action to see what it's like in the Football League again. Let's avoid that obvious joke. But did you feel that as well?
Yeah, it felt pure. I think it didn't feel
pure,
like it didn't feel like I was watching in sort of trigonometry. It felt like I was watching a football match, which was quite nice. It was nice not for the focus to be actually on what was going on the pitch as opposed to what's going on the screen, and not having to get rulers out and talk about millimetres. That was quite nice for a change. And Pad said there about Alex Neil calling for it. I actually think their second goal would have probably been ruled out as well for one of the armpit ones, having seen a still of that back. But there you go. I think, and someone asked me on Twitter, would you be saying the same if those goals went against Norwich? But I don't think you would, because the reality is, if you don't have technology, you have to accept that there's going to be human error. And from what I saw today, there wasn't anything, I'm going to use the 2 words, but clear and obvious about any decisions today that were wrong. It felt, I don't think anyone, certainly at the time, though, I didn't see any protests from Preston players for offside. So to me, it was football as it should be, which was about the content on the pitch and about the players playing the game as opposed to the officials. And it was really nice. It had a brilliant flow. The pace of it was excellent. I'd say supporters probably preferred it in the stadium largely, perhaps not in the Preston end, but certainly the Norwich fans who experienced it this year, because it was what we all fell in love with. That was the product that we've all which is why we watch football, because it was football, and it wasn't dictated by VAR, and it was nice to see. And sadly, we have to go back to it next week, which is a bit of a shame. But given and I think today, to be fair, I perhaps you don't realise perhaps the effect it has until you remove yourself and put yourself in an environment where it isn't there. And I think today sort of opened my eyes up a little bit, because like you, I've been someone, which might not come across for people who regularly listen to this podcast, but certainly someone who felt that it would improve the game over time, and that would give it time. But the way it's being used at the moment, I don't even particularly think it's the technology or the laws. I think it's more the people using it, to be completely honest. But it's nice to have a situation where we're talking about the football, because that's what we all want to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, it has to be remembered that mistakes were made by officials before VAR, but from then going back into a game without it today, it's that feel of the goals and the immediate aftermath, not having to think, is VAR happening? Is there a check going on? Like the Cantwell goal against Palace, where the muted celebration was there. There was no muted celebration from the Norwich fans when Ida scored any of his goals. His penalty, I haven't checked his penalty back to see if there's any encroachment yet. Who knows? Maybe the keeper was a yard off his or a toe off his line. Maybe one of the Norwich players had half a foot in the area at the moment that the ball was struck. Who knows?